So the big tax question is this: how do wealthy people keep their money working for them when selling their business, real estate, or other highly appreciated assets without paying hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in tax? What if we, as business and real estate owners who have poured blood, sweat, and tears to growing our wealth, and who didn't hire expensive tax attorneys and CPAs to map out an exit strategy, knew their secrets? Instead of recreating the wheel, why can't we just model the way they deferred 30 to 50% in tax, paid off debt, funded their next business dream, and most importantly, leave a financial legacy to give to the causes we believe in most? What if their secrets weren't complicated at all, and you just need a guide who is a few steps ahead of you? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Brett Swarts, and welcome to Capital Gains Tax Solutions. Welcome to the Expert CRE Secrets podcast, where we believe most commercial real estate brokers and luxury realtors, they struggle with clarifying their passive income options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven brokerage strategy, such as the eXp commercial model and purchasing investment real estate of your own, is the best way for you to grow your wealth. I'm your host, Brett Swarts, and each episode I am joined by some of the best commercial real estate brokers, agents, luxury realtors, and passive income wealth advisors in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex brokerage strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. I'm excited about our next guest. He's what I like to call a Hall of Famer when it comes to all things commercial real estate. In fact, he's the president of the Boulder Group out of Chicago. And in 2014, 19, and 20, he received the honorable mention for Net Lease Executive of the Year by Commercial Property Executive Magazine. In 2008, he was inducted into the Real Estate Journal's Real Estate Magazine's Commercial Real Estate Hall of Fame. And for decades, from 2009 to 2020, was ranked by CoStar as one of the top 5 commercial real estate advisors in the nation, with just over 1,400 completed transactions. Please welcome to the show with me, Randy Blankstein. Randy, how you doing, sir?
Good. How are you, Brett? Thanks for having me.
And it's Blankstein. Let me pronounce that correctly. Blankstein.
Blankstein,
yes. And so for our listeners getting to know you for the first time, Randy, would you give us a little bit more about your background and your current focus?
Sure. I mean, I've been aging myself a little bit. Been in the commercial real estate business for 30 years now. Primarily and almost exclusively as a owner of a boutique net lease investment brokerage company called the Boulder Group. You know, we focus on retail, office, and industrial for single tenant properties, names like Home Depot, Walgreens, Dollar General, etc. You know, we coordinate with the name of your show, passive income, mostly through, triple net ownership of, people mostly at the end of their career looking to get out of multifamily or other active management property into more passive investing, like triple net lease, single tenant, which really requires you to collect a check for the most part, and is our primary focus.
Excellent. Love that. We're going to dive into some of those strategies and some of the thoughts on building your brokerage and how you help your clients. But I want to start with this first question to help myself and our listeners get to know you for the first time. I believe we've all been given certain gifts in this life, Randy, and some people call them superpowers, some people call them strengths. I believe they're God-given gifts, and these gifts have been given to us to be a blessing and of help to others. So I want you to go back maybe to your college days or your high school days, and maybe you can identify, maybe 1 or 2 gifts that you believe you were given. And how do those gifts help how you help people today?
On a counterintuitive sense, I think one of my main success points in this business has been because I'm an introvert, and this is primarily an extroverted business. And I think being an introvert has allowed me to, stand out because you end up spending more time listening than talking, and kind of just differentiate yourself in this business where a lot of people like to talk and say a lot of things. I tend to gather information, more fact-based, more research-based, and then, am able to relate in that way. A lot of my extroverted, friends and competitors, tend to say a lot more things, off the cuff or work more on the relationship. And I spend more time focusing on, the client needs, the property level specifics and things of that nature. And I think, being kind of quieter and introverted in the space, like people will tell you it's probably not the primary people that you'll run into, has really helped me out over time.
That's really powerful, and I think you could write a whole book on just that of in itself. By the way, you can learn more about Randy Blankstein at bouldergroup.com. And Blankstein. I'm sorry, Blankstein. I want to fight that, right? It's that EIN, right?
Everyone kind of fights it, yes.
Stein. Yeah, Stein. At bouldergroup.com. But I think there's so much wisdom there, Randy, of what you're saying there. And it's, there is a reason it says, listen twice as much as you talk. And I definitely, I can relate to that because I'm the extrovert, right? And I can get talking and I can get excited and sometimes that's not serving the client. We're not focusing on the property and the underwriting and the value add opportunity or the nuance to a deal, especially if you're representing on the buy side. And by listening, when I first started at Marcus and Millichap, they always talked about asking open-ended questions, and we literally sat in a circle, and we would in training, and we would have to just keep asking open-ended questions. And you could not ask a closed-ended question, or you're out, right? Or you got like a ding on the training. And so it's just learning to ask open-ended questions, learning to listen. I also read a book recently with the gentleman, Never Split the Difference, and he talks about the power of mirroring, right? Where you can mirror what the other person is saying, and the psychology and the chemistry behind the brain, in that if someone doesn't know if they've been heard, it's very difficult to actually be in communication. And so the idea of mirroring is by saying the last few words or the last few sentences or thoughts that they had on the last few sentences. And once they go, yes, he's heard me, now they can be in a state of hearing. So let's dive into that to a little bit more there. Besides, being an introvert, which has helped you to listen more, what other ways have you honed your listening skills?
Well, like I said, I may be a beneficiary in some ways of never having formal training because, you kind of have to figure out things yourself a little bit, and I think that helps over time. Again, I think you can pick up some nuances of what people say that may be a backhanded comment or people originally didn't focus on in the conversation, and you can end up drilling down and really, discovering certain things that, will benefit you later. I think a lot of people, when you talk to them, especially about their acquisition criteria, go on and tell you, they're looking for, a major metro, a credit tenant, a long-term lease, and all the kind of things which, make a very high-quality asset. And then they tell you, on the other hand, well, I'm only looking to pay, call it a 6.5 cap, and those things are kind of disconnected. So you need to figure out kind of, are they more focused on the 6.5 cap? Are they more focused on the high-quality tenant? And usually you can tell by the passion or excitement in their voice as to which side of the conversation that they're on. So I think, again, open-ended questions are great, but you really have to focus on, what they're talking about, what they say first, what they keep coming back to, and just little nuances that you pick up during the conversation, which, can guide you in the right direction. And again, sometimes you can't take people at their word. They'll say things in good faith, but they may mean different things, whereas some are focused on value, on cap rate, others are focused on quality. People say they're focused on both, but you have to determine, what's really the correct focus here.
Yeah, very well said. And I think sometimes too, for the clients that we're helping to advise, they don't know until they're talking with you and they're thinking out loud, and they're discussing through it and they're going through it, and it's psychology in a sense, right? You pick up on something that they may not be as aware of, and then you connect that need or that solution or or how that property is going to help them, especially if it's triple net credit tenant, something that's more secure, something that's more dependable, or all of those things play a role. The emotional, the EQ, right, versus just the IQ is so important. That being said, what's the most rewarding part, Randy, of what you do?
The most rewarding part is people come to me more at the end of their career, and they come to me on defense, not on offense. They've made their money in land speculation, in multifamily speculation, in other kinds of development, and now they're trying to, mostly via 1031 exchanges, to protect that income and build themselves a fixed income, passive income for retirement and a steady income stream. So, my goal is for certain people not to hear from them again, which means that the property is performing, that the income is coming in, and that the properties they selected that they're very happy with, and they don't feel the need to sell. That kind of is a success that, I've helped someone, achieve the retirement dreams that they thought they were going to do, and that the defensive strategy, the conservative thing, which is what net lease is about, has performed, and they're very happy with it. So again, the less complaints and the less problems, the better off we solve the solution over time.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I love that. The defense versus offense, right? So you're triple net, passive, Typically, depending if it's an absolute triple net, it's just mailbox money, right? Versus the value add heavy multifamily or multi-tenant retail or industrial hotel, right? Can be very, very hands-on. This can be passive. So now let's talk about the importance of diversification and the importance of finding that deal that's going to be indeed something you can count on. I think of in the early days of the crash. I did a Hollywood deal. We sold it like right kind of before everything kind of blew up. And you go, there's certain tenants. So talk about the, deciphering and figuring out how to make sure you're getting in with the top rated tenants and that people can help them feel secure in that investment.
Yeah. So the analogy I always use is, we are the bond market versus the stock market. The stock market is where you do more speculation. You're looking for higher returns. And the bond market, which is the defensive part, is you're looking for fixed income, steady income stream, and not a lot of surprises. So, being the bond market of it, we always think that, especially people at the end of their career, they're protecting their money. They're not going to maybe get a second chance through time because they're getting up there in age. That this is their retirement, and they need to make it last, and they need to build up a steady cash flow stream. So we steer people towards primarily investment grade products, which is Standard & Poor's, which is a rating agency, rates all these tenants based on their financial strength, and the better ones with long-term leases and sometimes in major metros, are the most expensive on a cap rate basis. But again, since you're playing in the bond market and the conservative side of things, we think selling for lower yields, which is longer expiration leases, better tenants, better metros, is the correct play for that. There's certainly a part of this thing for higher risk if you want to go, buy, tenants which are struggling or short-term leases. There's a side where you can do some value add or opportunistic investing in net lease, but the down the road, middle of the fairway investor, he's looking for conservative, he's looking for safety. So that's really the part which we focus on primarily.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about Delaware Statutory Trust versus triple net, just 1031s. So either buying and giving up control. Let's just put it that way on a Delaware, right? Versus owning your own deal. What's your take on that? What how do you walk a client through who might be considering, hey, I'll just give this up to a Delaware Statutory Trust versus just doing a traditional 1031 and buying their own deal?
Well, look, generically, our clients tend to be on the very high net worth side of things. So they're used to ownership. They don't necessarily play that great in the sandbox with others, and they want to control the decisions. They want to be able to, things like death, divorce, and other things come into play. They want to be the final control over it. So, we primarily steer smaller clients, and smaller being called 1 to 400,000 of equity. They're much better DSTs. You can buy higher quality properties. Diversification makes more sense. If you have a smaller portfolio with a variety of DSTs, that can be a diversification play. But again, I think if you have enough money for your own property, meaning $1 million of equity or more, you should buy your own property because there's a level of control that you can't get with the DST. So again, I think there's nothing wrong with DSTs other than, it's a control issue and a kind of a secondary market issue. So I think it's better for smaller investors, and, sole ownership, which is our focus, is better for larger investors. I think that's the end of the day play.
Yeah, I can agree with you more, and also too the importance of liquidity, right? In today's marketplace, diversification and the ability to be able to buy when you want to, right? So a lot of these Delawares, and I've done some Delawares with some clients, and of course done 1031 exchanges in the Deferred Sales Trust as well, and they're like 7 to 10 years. I mean, you're locked up, right? And it's out of your control. They're managing it, and it's a lot of high fees too, some really, really big fees. And you go, is it worth it for that versus just buying my own deal, right? And being able to sell or refinance or do something when I want the money or need the money. So I think you got to definitely take a peek at, all of the pros and cons behind the Delaware Statutory Trust. And I even think to the horror days of the TICs, when the TICs didn't work out, right? And people got in with some groups that weren't as, let's just say, good at making quality decisions with investments and lost everything. So you got to be careful there. Okay, so Delaware Statutory Trust, triple nets. So now let's focus on the brokers themselves. Like, what do you think separates the top, you've sold over 1,400 deals, right? And you're in the Commercial Real Estate Hall of Fame, I think, in probably about everyone's book. and top CoStar broker. What separates the top from the average?
I think, look, the top people tend to be more direct or honest than others. I think, they're later stage in their career, most of them, and they don't have to kind of overpromise. I never understood people who, want to start a relationship by overpromising on, unachievable cap rates, because it's a long-term game and you have to take a long-term perspective. So, I focus on, under-promising and over-delivering. That's how to build long-term relationships. I think you do the right thing over time. You've built a book of clients and you get repeat clients. And I think if you're not always looking to repeat clients over and over again, if you're always looking for new clients, you haven't spent enough time servicing your existing ones. So, I think it's a bunch of small little things over time that put you in the right direction. Meaning we've had one focus. We stayed in business for 30 years. Our reputation is good. We underpromise. It's a lot of little things collectively that add up. A lot of people either go from thing to thing, or go to net lease when it's hot, then they switch to multifamily, then they switch to land. We're kind of boring and keep to the same thing over and over time. You get known in the space, you get a niche. People understand, they trust you, they want to do business with you, their kids want to do business with you. So it's really reputation over time, and you earn your reputation kind of one day at a time, and one decision at a time. And again, honesty, and some people might find me rude at times, or not telling them what they want to hear, but it's really served me well. And again, a lot of times we don't get brokerage assignments because people don't like our guidance or what we have to say about the property, but we end up, what we said was actually truthful at the end. So maybe we get it, repriced 6 months from now as a second broker in. That's a big share of our business. So again, we're okay losing assignments. We don't tell people that everything they have is the best and it's the greatest, and show them comps which are not realistic. If your property's in Illinois, where I live, it's probably not as good in demand today as Florida and Texas and tax-free states and things with positive population growth. And you need to make people aware of it. So some people show comps like everything's all the same. Walgreens is within 15 years is a Walgreens in 15 years, but that's not the case. There's other factors in decision in certain markets which are deeper than smaller. So again, telling people things they don't want to hear, why it doesn't sound like a great strategy, has done really well for us over time.
Very well said. So good. By the way, you can learn more about Randy Blankstein at bouldergroup.com. So let's talk about those tax-free states, and let's talk about capital gains tax as one of the biggest challenges. Biden is proposing potentially to raise and basically double the federal from about 20 to about 40. He's thinking about or considering perhaps taking away or limiting the 1031 exchange. So when you're looking at taxation, you're looking at potentially some of those challenges. How are you preparing your clients to handle those things?
Well, look, I tell them you have to operate for the moment as if things are not going to change, because why they might, since I've been in the business, which is almost 30 years, 1031 exchange has been a hot button issue. It's been on the table, and it's always easy for talking points, doesn't sound good. You're giving tax benefits to maybe some of the more wealthy individuals in the country. But the reality is it supports a lot of different real estate values. It has other people who are beneficiaries of it downstream, from title companies to lenders and and insurance companies and banks. And these are all people, things that stocks and companies that people work for. So the real estate market is supported by 1031s to some extent, and evaluations based upon them existing. And if they don't exist, everything from local towns transfer taxes are going to be impacted. So and tax values of the property. So, there's a lot of negative effects of 1031 going away. And while I understand it's popular and people need revenue, especially today, and Biden wants to target it, ultimately I think that 1031 doesn't change unless it gets swept up into a much larger tax bill, which takes away kind of all degrees of loopholes. That has a chance of going through, and that has a chance of getting rid of 1031. By itself, I think the real estate lobby and the real estate individuals, the people that understand this issue, will talk them out of passing it through common sense. But again, it's always going to be up for a talking point because, generically it looks like a tax benefit for higher income individuals. But I think if you get to the nuances and the details, I think the story actually is much better. And I think most Americans, at least own a home, so they're in the market, even if not in the commercial real estate market. So they understand kind of the implications to them of saying, look, you may get this tax now, but the value of your property is going to go down. Nobody wants to hear that message. It's just a question. the real estate industry messaging that effectively.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And let's hope the 1031 stays in place because it truly incentivizes people to trade. And that actually, when they trade, they actually typically buy a bigger property, which gets a higher property tax, which in turn, creates a commission, which is a taxable event for on like a broker and escrow, and then the new property that's purchased, and perhaps even they're going to build and expand that property or renovate that property, which creates better housing for more people. So the key is to keep the money flowing like water, and as it flows, it can create more versus being stagnated. And so hopefully they keep the 1031 there. That being said, let's shift into like some of the nuances of like depreciation, right? And so on commercial, it's about 39 years for a commercial property, multifamily about 27 and a half years. Are you using some cost segregation to help your, connecting your clients there? And how has that been a value add over the years to help them create and preserve more wealth?
The depreciation for a bread and butter property, most people don't spend a ton of time focusing on. I think if you own a specialty property like a C-store, convenience store, where certain things can be depreciated at different levels, that has a key benefit. Or, larger industrial properties or larger office properties, cost seg on a $1 million Dollar General doesn't really pay off for you. But as you get to $5 million properties and you get to things which have, different depreciation schedules, sometimes you can buy a property and it's not 39 years of certain items that are, different schedules. It makes a lot of sense. So I think it's something that everyone should look at with their properties. Sometimes it makes more sense than others. But certainly you have to look at depreciation as part of your overall return. And, as part of the overall return, if you look at depreciation on top of it, it's very difficult to beat commercial real estate over the long term on a strict investment basis. And depreciation is certainly one of the benefits of it. 1031 exchange is another benefit. There's just certain things unique to commercial real estate that, juice your returns. And, it's real after-tax money that comes to you. So I think everyone should look at depreciation, but it may not apply on every last property.
Excellent. And I know you've done, hundreds or thousands of 1031 exchanges over the years. I'm just curious, what's your biggest frustration or your clients' frustrations when it comes to the 1031 exchange?
Well, I think the 45-day window, which is what you have to ID your properties after you close, I think a lot of people wish that was 60 or 90 days because, they feel like they have a gun to their head and, they like more breathing room, and everybody always wants more time to make a big decision. So, I think they would like that extended a little bit, and I don't think there's a negative impact by extending it 15 more days to 60 is one of the issues. And then B, I think people would like to, just see it kind of an easier process and see, things like reverse exchanges where you buy the property first, made it a little bit easier and a little bit less expensive. So there's always people that want to complain and tinker with the rules. And some of them should be changed over time. But at the moment, the industry is kind of just focused on not having tax changes go through. So I think the minor modification issues is going to be for a different year. I think, because Biden focused on this in last year, I think a lot of people are just focused on, let's stop any tax modifications for this year. And we'll get to the nuances and the changes, in one of the out years. This year's fight is to keep 1031 alive and pretty much the same as it is for the most part.
Yeah, no, very well said. Yeah, we call it the shotgun wedding, right? You get engaged in 45 days and you get married in 180. And sometimes it's fine, right? Because you can find deals that make sense, and especially if it's a buyer's market. I tend to think it's a seller's market, and prices are like through the roof right now, and rates are so low, it's driving prices even higher. So we specialize in the Deferred Sales Trust, which is an alternative to a 1031 exchange, and it gives people unlimited timing to buy whatever they want. And I think about the 05, 06 market when things were really rising up in price, and then 08 hit, and it was kind of a big shocker. So playing the Monday morning quarterback, and I don't know if you owned real estate, Randy, but I want to take you back to those times. Knowing what you know now, would you have sold everything and just paid the tax, or would you?
Well, look, that also assumes you would have sold, put it into the right thing, and then got out of it at the right time, and then restarted it again. So you have to make a lot of assumptions on just selling. Again, the beauty of net lease properties, if you get a 15-year lease in 2007, you didn't notice anything happened. Your income came every month, and your lease is just expiring now because it was a 15 or 20-year lease. So the beauty of net lease is it kicks you downturns like the beginning of Corona last year. Nothing changed to you, meaning you got your income. Your store may have performance, I mean, not even been open, but if you had an investment grade tenant, you got your check and everything was fine. So, valuations change. The only thing I think that's fundamentally changed is that you have a large population that is, older demographic that's under save for retirement and looking for yield. That, regardless of where interest rates go or 1031 exchange rules, that's not going to change anytime soon. There's a group between 65 and 80, which is bigger than ever, which retirement savings isn't as big as they thought it would be. So there will be this move towards yield, and treasuries aren't going to get you to where the income that most people envisioned 5 to 10 to 15 years ago. And so, net lease at 5 caps even, is versus 10-year treasury bond investing is triple your income from the treasury bond. Yes, it's a different risk profile and other things, but it's still a tripling of your income. And so if you're buying in REITs or other ways to get into the market, not necessarily directly or through DSTs or any product, it's yield pickup. And so long as there's individuals searching for yield, which again, the retirement crisis isn't abating anytime soon, this is going to be a good asset class. It is fixed income bond yield replacement. And I think that is really the biggest driver for the next 10 years. That subset exists. So again, not that the market can't go down, but that's my hope as far as there's a cushion below that will always seek yield. As the market goes down, people will try to be locking that yield. So that's the optimistic note.
That makes sense. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, the 15-year lease. You bought in 07, 15. Yeah, then you're just now coming to the end of that lease. And I mean, assuming the tenant stayed in place, right? And I don't know what the stats are on that, right?
It's a little bit over 85%.
Yeah. Okay. So 85% of them stayed in business. So you had a 15% chance again, and hopefully that they just went out completely, and then you lose out there. But okay. The next thing I want to focus on is estate tax, right? Because sometimes people don't even look at this, and you're right. The 65 to 80-year-olds, it's part of the baby boomers. This is according to the American Bankers Association, is about 17 to 20 trillion that's going to pass in the next 18 to 20 years, and this is the largest wealth transfer in the history of the planet that we know of. And there's about 10,000 every day turning 65, and there's about 70 in the U.S. alone. There's about 77 million in the U.S. alone. And not only are they looking at this, capital gains tax if they sell and don't have a 1031, don't have a deferred sales trust, or don't have a Delaware Statutory Trust. But once they pass their estate, if it's inside of their taxable estate, they're going to get hit with 40% above the exclusion. So, for example, we just did a deal, Randy. I'm curious what you think about it. It was in Colorado, and it was a couple. They have about a $25 million net worth, mostly in commercial real estate, and they sold an asset for about $5 million, a multifamily property. And they used the deferred sales trust. They moved it outside of their taxable estate. And part of why they like the deferred sales trust is because instead of a 1031 was because they could save the estate tax, right? Which is 40%. So right now it's set to expire in 2025, go from 22 million married, probably back down to about 12 million married. Okay. And so if you're single, it's already half of that, 12 million single, and then it'll be going down to 6 million single. Likely, it could change, right? But any thoughts on just helping your clients with estate tax to be able to create and preserve more wealth once they pass it to their kids?
We don't spend as much time as you focusing on, deferred sales trust or estate planning. Probably we should. Most of the time people get to us, they've, are high net worth and have probably their own team of kind of accountants, attorneys, estate planners, et cetera, that they go through it. So we're kind of an after the fact on that. So while the clients may focus on that, we don't directly, help them with their estate plan. Usually they have it set up, they have an estate attorney, they have a plan, and we're already just part of the plan that's in place. So you see it more at the front end, we see it more at the back end.
Got it. Yep. Stay in your lane, stay your focus where you're at. I'm with you. That sounds good.
That's where we are.
So all that being said, are you ready for the lightning round?
I'm ready for the lightning round, yes.
All right, here we go. So knowing what you know now, Randy, if you could go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget you would tell yourself to do or to check out?
I spent a few years by myself doing everything. I would have hired a team day one if I had known better, regardless if I could afford it or not.
Got it. Hire a team day one and scale. How big is your team right now, by the way?
There's only 6 of us, which still does a lot of volume, but again, it took too long for them to go from 1 to 6. It should have been 6 day one.
Got it. Excellent. And that could be a whole nother show. Maybe we can touch on that. Number one book you've recommended the most in the past year.
Poor Charlie's Almanac. It's my favorite book of all time. It's about Charlie Munger, who's Warren Buffett's partner. While it's an investing book, it's really about ways of thinking and kind of how to live your life. It talks about, a way to invert think, and it's really just a way to model of success and, how he's done well. Fascinating book.
Poor Charlie Almanac. I'm going to check that
Poor
out.
Charlie's Almanac.
Poor Charlie's Almanac. Okay.
Poor Charlie's Almanac. It's on Amazon.
Okay, awesome. Excellent. Next question would be biggest challenge or obstacle facing commercial real estate brokers today?
I still think longer term fees are going to come under pressure somewhat. So someone like me may mind it less because we're used to high volume. But I think there's a lot of people that do a few transactions a year, and that will very negatively impact them. So I think to get more streamlined in commodities and transparent, there'll be some fee pressure moving forward. Again, it just means someone like me may have to do a few more deals a year, but for some people that's very difficult. So something that we'll watch out for.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. The automation technology is challenging the value proposition of every single business professional, and you see it with Redfin and Zillow on the residential side, and we're seeing it on the commercial side too with the auction sites and the different things. And so the value of representation is under fire. So
yeah,
I could agree. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So next question is this: what's your favorite leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
It's Vince Lombardi said, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. Kind of an absolutist approach, but, the goal is to win. I'm not saying that you shouldn't win fairly or win ethically, but, the goal is ultimately to win. So I think a lot of people sell themselves short or are happy with, either the status quo or kind of winning. To me, it's absolutist. Either you won or you haven't. And if you can do anything to win, you should be doing it. Push yourself a little bit harder.
Love it. Couldn't agree with you more. Love Vince Lombardi. Next question, second to last question is this. What are you curious about right now?
I don't know if this is because my son is into it, but I'm very curious about cryptocurrencies. Haven't traded them, reading a book on them now, just trying to understand kind of all perspectives on it, because my first perspective was, I don't see what the value is. I don't see how these things are valued. I don't understand this business at all, but it's clearly real business to some extent. And, I'm just trying to figure out, not just to invest, but just in general, how this thing came from nowhere, how Bitcoin became the star of it, why people are infatuated with it, why the price is so volatile. It's just something I don't understand and that I'd like to know a lot better.
It's fascinating. Yeah, I've dabbled just a little bit just to kind of play in there, but it's a whole nother universe. And we've actually have some clients that we're working on some capital gains tax on some cryptocurrency deals. And it's just so fascinating to go, I talked to them like, what's your coin? I'm like, why is that the coin? And they're explaining it to me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a real estate guy. I'm like built houses with my dad and rentals all my life. Like this is just, and I'm a millennial, right? It's still kind of going over my head, but yeah, no, I mean, we'll see what happens, that and the drones, right? The drones and the cryptocurrencies are going to be, taking over everything. Last question here. After all your success, after being named one of the top 5 commercial real estate CoStar brokers in the nation, over 1,400 deals, and having your team, your success is helping all your clients over all the years, 30 years, Randy, how do you stay centered in your values, and how do you stay encouraged to charge forward and reach for new goals?
Staying centered is easy because I have a family that doesn't necessarily care about my outside success that much. Mm-hmm. So my wife and my kids keep me pretty humble. So, that's kind of an easy one. And I also think, look, you're only as good as your last deal. No one wants to hear what you did, 3 and 5 years ago. So you have to keep reinventing yourself and stay relevant and, change with the times. I didn't even really know or really care much about the podcast industry a few years ago. And now that's all I listen to. And I've done 6 this month because I determined that, over this downtime when there's no conferences and less meetings, I should get into the podcast space as far as a guest. So I'm thrilled to be here today, and I'm trying to, get actively involved and get a hold of new people and say what I have to say on podcasts. So I think it's great.
I think it's fantastic, and you've been a wonderful guest. You've provided tons of wisdom, and I've enjoyed it. I'm sure our listeners have enjoyed it. And for those who want to get in touch with you, Randy, can you remind them one last time, what's the best place for them to find you?
You can either go to bouldergroup.com, there's a contact us page, or just look me up on LinkedIn. I respond to both, and they're every day. So.
And it's Randy Blankstein, and that's bouldergroup.com. And hopefully if you're listening to this, first of all, if you're looking for a triple net broker who's done thousands, over 1,000 deals, well, you should reach out to Randy. He's not just in Chicago. He's doing it across the nation. And he's probably worked with just about every triple net, highly profitable business that you could think of. So reach out to Randy, find him at his website. And Randy, I want to encourage you to keep using the gifts and talents you've been given of embracing your introversion, right? Listening to people, I think you said, right? And making sure that you are gathering information and helping people to have those aha moments, right? With their preservation of their wealth and the more of the defense mode. I think that's important as brokers to understand how you serve your role and what gift you've been given. And Randy definitely knows what gift he's been given, and he's using that gift to make a huge difference in the commercial real estate world. That being said, for our listeners who want to listen and learn more about Expert CRE Secrets, you can go to expertcresecrets.com, where we have, and you can also look us up on YouTube, and you can see more episodes like this. Thank you for listening to another episode. Remember, not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven brokerage strategy such as the eXp commercial model and purchasing investment real estate and finding your niche is the best way for you to create and preserve more wealth in real estate brokerage. We appreciate you listening. Take care, everybody. Bye now.
You have just listened to another information-packed episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions with Brett Swarts. We hope you enjoyed today's show and found it helpful. Visit capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to access the show notes and to access more resources. Don't forget to leave a review and join us again next time.